The alarm screamed through every corridor of the Taesong's dream. Red emergency lights painted the walls in blood-colored streaks as Captain Daewon ran through the dying ship. His boots hammered against metal floors that groaned and buckled beneath him. Somewhere deep in the engine room, something exploded. The ship shuddered like a wounded animal. "Captain, the reactor is failing." Hana's voice crackled through his communicator. His chief engineer sounded terrified, and Hana never got scared. "We have maybe 10 minutes before the core breaches." Daewon pressed his hand against the wall to steady himself as another explosion rocked the vessel. They were so far from Earth, so impossibly far. This was supposed to be humanity's greatest achievement. The first deep space exploration beyond their own stellar neighborhood. Instead, it would become their tomb. "Get everyone to the cryo bay," Daewon ordered. His voice stayed calm even though his heart raced. A captain had to be steady. "We go into the freeze and wait for rescue." "Captain, no one knows where we are," Taehyun said through the comm. His navigator spoke the truth everyone was thinking. The distress beacon might not reach Earth for years. "Then we sleep for years," Daewon said. "Move." "That's an order." He reached the cryo bay and found his crew of 12 already gathering. They looked at him with scared eyes. Some were crying. Others just stared at the white cryopods lined against the walls like coffins. That's what they might become. Hana worked frantically at the control panel. Her fingers flew across the holographic interface. "I'm setting the pods to maximum duration," she said. "They'll keep us frozen for up to 50 years if needed." 50 years. Daewon thought about Earth. About his sister who was supposed to get married next month. About his nephew who was just learning to walk. Would they even remember him if he ever made it back? "Everyone in," Daewon commanded. Engineers first, then medical, then command crew. The crew began climbing into their assigned pods. The machines hissed and beeped as they sealed shut. White frost immediately began forming on the glass surfaces. Daewon watched each pod activate successfully. Hana gave him a small wave before her pod sealed. Then her eyes closed as the freezing process began. Taehyun was the last besides Daewon. "See you on the other side, Captain," he said with a weak smile. "Count on it," Daewon replied. Taehyun's pod sealed. Now only Daewon remained awake. He walked to his own pod and opened it. The interior was already cold. He could see his breath forming clouds in the air. As the captain, he would be the last to sleep and the first to wake. That was the rule. He climbed inside and reached for the activation button. His finger hovered over it. Once he pressed it, that was it. Their fate was sealed. They would either be rescued or drift in frozen sleep until the pods failed or the ship was destroyed. Daewon closed his eyes and pressed the button. Nothing happened. He pressed it again. Still nothing. The pod's display showed an error message. Power fluctuation. The failing reactor was affecting the cryo systems. No, Daewon muttered. He climbed out and ran to the control panel. The ship shook again. Sparks showered from a broken panel across the room. He had minutes at most. His hands worked desperately to reroute power to his pod, but every pathway he tried was failing. The ship was dying too fast. He could save the others' pods, keep them frozen, but his own wouldn't activate. "Captain Daewon always goes down with his ship," he whispered bitterly. How traditional. Then the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in after 3 seconds, but those seconds felt eternal. When the lights returned, they were dimmer. The ship groaned louder. Metal screamed somewhere in the depths of the vessel. Daewon looked at the cryopods holding his crew. At least they would survive. The pods had their own power reserves. They could keep working even after the ship died completely. Maybe another ship would find them someday. Maybe Earth would send searchers. He sat down on the floor and leaned against his broken pod. This wasn't how he imagined dying. He thought he'd grow old, retire, spend time with family. Now he would suffocate when the life support finally failed, or freeze when the heat died, or get blown apart when the reactor went critical. The ship shuddered again. This was it. The final moments, then everything stopped. The alarms cut off. The shaking ended. Even the groaning metal went silent. Daewon stood up slowly. What was happening? A new sound filled the air, deep and resonating, like someone was humming a note so low it made his bones vibrate. The walls began to glow with a strange blue light that didn't come from any of the ship's systems. Daewon ran to the nearest window. What he saw made no sense. A ship hung in space outside. But calling it a ship was like calling the ocean a puddle. The thing was enormous. It stretched across his entire field of vision, black and sleek and covered in lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. The design was nothing like human vessels. It looked organic, grown rather than built. Oh my God, Daewon breathed. A beam of light shot from the massive ship and enveloped the Taesong's dream. Daewon felt the sensation of movement. But he wasn't moving. The ship was. The alien vessel was pulling them in. He ran back to the control panel and tried to activate any system that still worked. Communications were dead. Weapons had never been installed on an exploration vessel. Engines were gone. He was completely helpless. The cryo-bay door suddenly opened. Daewon spun around. Figures stood in the doorway. Tall figures, very tall. They had to duck to enter the room. Their skin glowed with soft bioluminescent patterns that shifted colors from blue to purple to silver. They wore armor that looked like it was made of flowing metal. Their eyes were large and dark, with vertical pupils like a cat's. One of them stepped forward. She was taller than the others, nearly 7 feet. Her armor had more decorations. A leader, maybe. She looked at Daewon with an expression he couldn't read. She spoke. The words were musical and strange, nothing like any human language. But then a device on her armor glowed and new words came out. Translated words. "You are the last one awake," the tall alien said. Her voice was deep and strong. "Why do you not sleep like the others?" Daewon tried to make his voice work. "My pod failed." "Who are you? What do you want?" The alien tilted her head. "I am Yura, princess of the Velthari Empire. And you are the most interesting thing I have found in many years." She smiled. The expression looked predatory. "Welcome aboard my ship, human." Daewon woke up in a bed that wasn't his. The ceiling above him glowed with soft purple light that pulsed gently like breathing. The walls were smooth and curved, nothing like the metal corners and straight lines of human design. Everything felt organic, alive somehow. He sat up quickly and immediately regretted it. His head spun. How long had he been unconscious? He remembered the aliens, the tall princess, and then nothing. They must have drugged him or knocked him out. The room was huge, larger than his entire quarters back on the Taesong's dream. Strange furniture dotted the space, though he couldn't figure out what most of it was for. A window took up one entire wall, showing stars streaking past. They were moving through space at incredible speed. "You are awake," a voice said. Daewon jumped. He hadn't heard anyone enter. Princess Yura stood near the doorway watching him. Without her armor, she looked even more alien. Her skin had those glowing patterns running down her arms and neck. She wore simple clothing that looked like it was made of liquid silver. Her dark eyes studied him with intense focus. "Where is my crew?" Daewon demanded. He stood up, trying to look commanding even though he felt dizzy. "What have you done with them?" "They remain in their frozen sleep," Yura said calmly. She walked closer and Daewon noticed how she moved, graceful but powerful like a predator. "They are safe. I give you my word." "Your word means nothing to me," Daewon said. "I don't know you. I don't know your people. For all I know, you're keeping them as prisoners." Yura's head tilted slightly. "They are insurance. To make sure you cooperate." "Insurance?" Anger flared in Daewon's chest. "They're people, not bargaining chips. Wake them up now." "No." The simple refusal caught Daewon off guard. He expected threats or explanations, not just a flat no. "Why not?" he asked. "Because I want to understand humans," Yura said. She moved to the window and looked out at the stars. "Your species is interesting. Your ship was dying, yet you fought to save your crew instead of yourself. This shows strength of character. I wish to learn more about this character." "By keeping me prisoner?" "You are not a prisoner. You are a guest." Yura gestured around the room. "This is one of the finest quarters on my ship. Many would kill for such an honor. I didn't ask for honor. I asked for freedom." Yura turned to face him. "In my culture, there is no difference. To be honored is to be free." "You confuse me, human. What is your name?" "Captain Daewon," he said stiffly. "Daewon," Yura repeated slowly, testing the sounds. "That is a good name. Strong. I am Yura, 4th Princess of the Velthari Empire, commander of the warship Eternal Flame, holder of 17 battle honors." "Congratulations," Daewon said dryly. "Can I go check on my crew now? You do not seem impressed by my titles. Should I be? On my world, titles don't mean much if you use them to bully others." Something flickered across Yura's face. Surprise, maybe? Or respect? Daewon couldn't tell. You speak boldly for someone who has no power here, she said. I speak honestly. That's all a captain can do. Yura stared at him for a long moment. Then unexpectedly she smiled. You really are interesting. Come, I will show you something. She walked to the door. It opened automatically, sliding into the walls without a sound. Yura looked back at Daewon expectantly. He didn't have much choice. He followed. The corridors of the ship were massive. The ceiling stretched 20 feet high at least. Everything had that same organic flowing design. Other Velthari passed them, and every single one was tall. The shortest was still over 6 feet. They all stopped and bowed when they saw Yura. Your people seem to respect you, Daewon observed. They fear me, Yura corrected. In our culture, respect and fear are the same thing. The strong lead. The weak follow. This is natural order. That sounds lonely. Yura stopped walking. She turned to look down at him. What do you mean? If everyone fears you, who can you trust? Who can you talk to as an equal? I need no equals. I am a princess. That sounds lonely, Daewon repeated. Yura's glowing patterns flickered. She turned away and kept walking. You understand nothing of our ways. They reached a large room filled with strange equipment. Screens covered the walls showing data Daewon couldn't read. Several Velthari worked at stations, but they all stopped when Yura entered. Leave us, Yura commanded. The workers hurried out. Within seconds, Daewon and Yura were alone. Yura walked to one of the screens and pressed something. An image appeared. It showed Earth, beautiful blue and green and white against the black of space. We have been watching your world for many years, Yura said. Your species is weak. Your technology is primitive. Your ships are slow and fragile, yet you continue to reach for the stars. Why? Because that's what humans do, Daewon said simply. We reach for things beyond our grasp. Sometimes we fail, but sometimes we succeed, and when you fail, when your ship breaks and your crew dies, then we learn and we try again. Yura made a sound that might have been a laugh. Foolish. Admirable, but foolish. Maybe. But we're still here after thousands of years of trying foolish things. The screen changed. Now it showed different images. Cities, ships, weapons, all human designs from throughout history. You have survived much, Yura admitted. Wars, diseases, environmental collapse. Your species should have destroyed itself many times. But you adapt. You survive. This interests me greatly. Why? Daewon asked. What do you want from us? Yura turned to face him fully. Her dark eyes locked onto his. I want to understand what makes humans so stubborn. So determined. My people are strong, but we are also rigid. We follow tradition. We do not change easily, but humans change constantly. This is a strength we lack. So you're studying us? Like lab rats? No, I am learning from you. There is a difference. Not to me, Yura moved closer. Daewon forced himself to stand still even though every instinct told him to back away. She was nearly 2 feet taller than him and her presence was overwhelming. In my culture, Yura said quietly, when one finds something valuable, one claims it. You are valuable, Daewon. Therefore I claim you. Excuse me. You will stay with me. Teach me about humanity. In return, I will keep your crew safe and eventually return you all to your world. That's not how this works. You can't just claim people. Why not? I am stronger. I have the power. Because people aren't things to own. Daewon's voice rose. We have rights, freedom, dignity. Strange concepts, Yura mused. But I will learn them. Starting now, she turned and walked to the door. Before leaving, she looked back. Your quarters are next to mine. My guards will show you around the ship. You may go anywhere except the locked sections. And Daewon, what? I am glad your pod failed. Meeting you is the most interesting thing to happen to me in a very long time. Then she was gone, leaving Daewon alone in the strange room, wondering what he had gotten himself into. Through the window he could see the Taesong's dream being pulled along by the massive alien ship. His crew slept inside, unaware of the impossible situation their captain now faced. He touched the glass and whispered, I'll get us home. I promise, but he had no idea how. 3 days passed on the Velthari ship, and Daewon learned that Princess Yura had a very different idea of what claiming someone meant. It started with gifts. The first morning he woke to find a weapon on the table beside his bed. It looked like a sword, but made of some crystalline material that hummed with energy. A note in translated text read, "A warrior should have proper tools." Day-Wan had never been much of a fighter. He was a pilot and explorer, but he thanked Yura anyway when he saw her, trying to be diplomatic. The second day, she gave him access codes to an entire section of the ship. "This territory is yours now," she announced proudly. 12 rooms and a command station. "I don't need 12 rooms," Day-Wan protested. "Then you are wealthier than you need to be. This is good. It shows status." The third day, she declared him an honorary member of her personal guard during a ceremony he didn't understand. Other Velthari warriors watched with expressions that ranged from confusion to anger. One warrior in particular, a massive male named Kale, looked like he wanted to break Day-Wan in half. "Princess Yura," Day-Wan said after the ceremony, "can we talk?" Privately, she led him to an observation deck. Space stretched endlessly beyond the transparent walls. Yura stood with her hands behind her back, looking pleased with herself. "You seem unhappy with my gifts," she said. "Am I giving the wrong things?" "It's not that," Day-Wan started carefully. "On my world, we don't give weapons and territory to people we just met. These are things earned through long relationships." "Long relationships?" Yura frowned. "How long?" "Months, years, sometimes a lifetime." "That is inefficient." Yura turned to face him. Her glowing patterns pulsed brighter. Something Day-Wan had learned meant she was feeling strong emotion. "If I value you now, why should I wait years to show it?" "Because that's how trust is built. You don't really know me yet. I know enough. You are loyal to your crew. You speak with courage even when afraid. You learn quickly. These are qualities I admire." She paused. "These are qualities I find attractive." Day-One's stomach dropped. "Attractive?" "Yes. In my culture, when one finds another attractive, one claims them." "I have claimed you." Now we enter the bonding phase. "Bonding?" "Yura, I think there's been a huge misunderstanding." "Explain." Day-Wan ran his hand through his hair, trying to figure out how to explain human courtship to an alien princess who thought claiming people was romantic. On Earth, relationships develop slowly. We spend time together, learn about each other, see if we're compatible. Then if both people agree, maybe something romantic happens. Both people agree? Yura looked genuinely confused. Why would agreement be needed? "I am a princess. I have chosen you. This should be enough." "No, it really shouldn't." Day-Wan kept his voice gentle but firm. "I have to choose too. And right now you're holding my crew hostage." "That's not exactly making me feel romantic toward you." Yura's patterns flickered rapidly. "Hostage? They are in protective custody. Same thing." "It is not." For the first time, Yura sounded frustrated. "I am trying to court you properly. By my culture's standards, I have been very patient. I gave you space. I gave you gifts. I gave you honors. What more do humans need?" "Time," Day-Wan said. "Understanding. Freedom to choose. Time is wasteful. Understanding comes through action. And freedom?" Yura moved closer. "I could force this. I have the power. But I do not. Instead, I ask and give." "Is that not your human freedom?" She had a point, even if she didn't fully understand it. Day-Wan had to admit that Yura had been trying in her own strange way. She hadn't actually forced him to do anything. She just didn't understand why he wasn't jumping at her offers. "Let me ask you something," Day-Wan said. "Why me? You could have anyone in your empire. Why pursue a human you barely know?" Yura was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer than he'd ever heard it. "Because you looked at me without fear. Everyone else bows or trembles or schemes. But you looked at me and saw a person, not a princess, not a warrior, just me." Something in Day-Wan's chest tightened. Beneath all the confusion and alien customs, he heard genuine loneliness. Yura was trapped by her own status just as much as he was trapped on her ship. "I understand that feeling," he admitted. "Being a captain means everyone sees the rank, not the man." "Yes." Yura's eyes brightened. "You do understand. This is why I knew you were different." Before Day-Wan could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Yura's expression instantly shifted from vulnerable to commanding. She touched a device on her wrist and spoke rapidly in her own language. "What's happening?" Day-Wan asked. "Another ship is approaching." "A Velthari royal vessel." Yura's jaw tightened. "My mother." "The Empress and your mother? Why would she come here?" "Because she has heard about you." Yura looked at Day-Wan with something close to worry. "She has heard that I am distracted by a primitive alien. She comes to investigate and likely to take you away. Would that be so bad? Maybe she can help explain things to you. You do not understand. My mother believes in strength above all else. If she thinks you make me weak, she will have you killed. The words hit Daewon like cold water. Killed for what? I haven't done anything. You exist. That is enough. Yura grabbed his shoulders, her large hands gentle despite their strength. Listen to me carefully, Daewon. When my mother arrives, you must show no fear. You must prove that humans are strong in their own way. If you cannot, she will destroy your ship and everyone in it. You would let her do that? I would have no choice. She is the Empress. Her word is law. Yura's patterns dimmed, showing distress. Unless I can convince her otherwise. Unless you can. Kale appeared in the doorway. His voice was hard when he spoke in translated words. Princess Yura, the Empress's flagship, will dock in 1 hour. She demands you prepare the human for presentation. I will, Yura said without looking away from Daewon. Leave us. Kyle lingered, his eyes on Daewon with clear hostility. Then he left. He doesn't like me, Daewon observed. He believes I'm making a mistake by showing interest in you. Many of my people think the same. Yura released his shoulders. They think humans are too weak to be worth our time. Then I'll prove them wrong. How? Daewon thought about his crew sleeping in cryo, about Earth waiting for them to return, about his sister's wedding and his nephew's first steps. He couldn't give up. That wasn't what humans did. Let me access the Taesong's Dreams computers, he said. Our ship's logs contain records of human history. Every challenge we've faced. Every extinction event we survived. Let me show your mother what humanity is really made of. Yura studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. Very well. But Daewon, my mother is not easily impressed. You will need to do more than show her old battles. What more does she want? She will test you herself. And I cannot help you during that test. You will face her alone. Daewon swallowed hard but stood straight. Then I'll face her alone. I'm a starship captain. That's what we do. We face the impossible and find a way through. For the first time, Yura smiled at him with something that looked like genuine warmth. Now you begin to understand why I find you so interesting. The hour passed too quickly. Soon Daewon stood in a massive hall watching through the view screens as the largest ship he'd ever seen approached. The Empress was coming, and with her came judgment for all humanity. The Empress's arrival was delayed by some diplomatic issue Daewon didn't fully understand. He had 6 more hours before facing judgment. 6 hours to prepare for an encounter that could decide the fate of his entire species. Yura had granted him access to the Taesong's Dream, and he stood now in the docking bay, staring at his battered ship. It looked so small compared to the Velthari vessels, like a child's toy next to a warship, but it was his ship, his responsibility. I will accompany you, Yura said from behind him. Daewon turned. She had changed into simpler clothing, less formal than her usual attire. You don't have to. I want to understand what you will show my mother, and... She hesitated. I wish to see your world through your eyes. They crossed the docking bridge and entered the Taesong's Dream. Emergency power kept some systems running, but the ship felt dead. No engine hum, no air circulation sounds, just silence. Daewon led the way through familiar corridors. Yura had to duck through doorways built for humans. She looked around with curiosity, touching control panels and examining equipment. Everything is so small, she murmured, fragile. We build for efficiency, not intimidation, Daewon said. He felt defensive about his ship, his world. I did not mean insult. It is just different. Yura paused at a wall covered in photos. The crew had decorated this section with pictures from home. Families, friends, pets, Earth landscapes. Who are these people? Memories. Things we brought to remind us of home. Yura leaned close to study one image. It showed Daewon with a woman and a small child. Is this your family? My sister and my nephew. That was taken before we launched. You left them to come here? Exploring space was my dream. They understood. Yet you miss them. It wasn't a question. Every day. Yura touched the photo gently. Velthari do not decorate ships with such things. We believe it shows weakness to miss what is behind us. And what do you believe? She pulled her hand back. I believe it takes strength to love something enough to miss it. They continued to the cryo bay. Daewon's chest tightened when he saw the pods, his crew, all depending on him to get them home safely. He went to the main control panel and began accessing the ship's computers. Yura wandered among the pods, looking at each sleeping face. They trust you completely, she observed. To sleep while you handle everything. That's what command means. The weight of every life on your shoulders. Daewon pulled up file after file. Battle records, survival logs, historical data. Humanity's greatest hits and worst failures. I need to organize this information in a way your mother will understand. While he worked, Yura stopped at one pod. Her expression changed. Daewon. Something is wrong here. He looked up. Yura stood beside Hana's pod. Daewon rushed over and checked the readings. His blood went cold. No. The pod showed signs of cryo failure. Not complete failure yet, but the temperature was rising slightly. If it continued, Hana would start to thaw, and premature thawing could cause brain damage or death. What is happening? Yura demanded. The pod is failing. I need to stabilize it. Daewon's hands flew across the manual controls. The reactor damage must have affected this pod's power supply. Tell me what to do. Hold this line steady, he pointed. Don't let the pressure drop below the red line. Yura immediately grabbed the indicated control. For someone so powerful and royal, she followed his instructions without question. Together they worked to reroute power and stabilize the failing systems. The cryobay got colder as they diverted more cooling to Hana's pod. Daewon's breath formed clouds in the air. His fingers started going numb. But he didn't stop. He couldn't stop. Why do you risk so much for one person? Yura asked as she held the controls steady. She is only an engineer. She's my crew, Daewon said fiercely. Every single person on this ship matters. I don't abandon my people, even if saving her endangers you, especially then. That's what humanity is. We protect each other. Yura was quiet while he continued working. Finally, the readings stabilized. Hana's pod showed green across all systems. Daewon slumped against the machine in relief. You truly care for them, Yura said softly. Of course I do. In my culture, leaders are separate from those they command. Distance creates respect. She moved closer to him. The cryobay was freezing now, and their breath mingled in the air between them. But you are not distant. You are right here, freezing yourself to save one person. This is not logical. Logic isn't everything. Then what is? Daewon met her eyes. Heart, compassion, loyalty. The things that make us human. Yura stared at him for a long moment. Then she reached out and touched his face. Her hand was warm despite the cold. Why do you not accept my claim on you? The question caught Daewon off guard. What? I have tried to understand your customs. I have given you time, but you still refuse me. Why? Her voice held genuine confusion and something else. Hurt. Yura, it's complicated. Explain it then. Make me understand. She moved closer, effectively trapping him against Hana's cryopod. In my world, when you want something, you take it. You claim it. You show strength and intention. But you humans complicate everything. If I am doing this wrong, tell me how to do it right. You can't just do it right. That's the point. Relationships take time. How much time? Days, months, years? Her patterns glowed brighter in the dim bay. I am a princess. I am not accustomed to waiting. If you want me, just do it now. This is your chance, Daewon's heart hammered. That's not how it works. Then how does it work? Teach me. Her voice rose with frustration. I have conquered enemies. I have led armies. I have mastered weapons and strategy and politics, but I cannot understand why you refuse what I freely offer. Because what you're offering isn't free, Daewon said. My crew is still in cryo. I'm still on your ship with no choice. How can I make a free choice when I'm not free? Yura pulled back as if struck. Her glowing patterns dimmed. I have not harmed you. I have honored you. You've imprisoned me with gifts. Daewon kept his voice gentle despite his frustration. Yura, you want me to choose you? Then give me actual freedom. Let me and my crew go. If after that I choose to come back, then you'll know it's real. And if you do not come back, then you'll know I was never yours to begin with. Yura turned away. Her shoulders tensed. For a long moment she said nothing. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. My entire life I have been alone. I am too strong for friends. Too royal for equals. Too fierce for gentle things. She looked back at him. Then you appeared. Small and weak by my people's standards, yet you looked at me without fear. You argued with me. You challenged me. You made me feel what? Less alone. Her admission seemed to cost her something. I thought claiming you was right. That is what my culture taught me. But now I see it is not enough. You humans need something more, something I do not know how to give. Day One felt his anger softening. What you need to give is patience. Trust that takes time to build. Patience. Yura said the word like it was foreign. My people believe patience is weakness. Then maybe your people are wrong about some things. Her eyes widened. No one probably ever told a Velthari princess her culture was wrong. Teach me, Yura said finally. Teach me to be patient. Teach me to earn what I want instead of taking it. I can try. But it starts with freedom. Real freedom, Yura nodded slowly. When my mother's test is complete, I will wake your crew, and I will give you a choice to stay or go. This is my promise. Thank you. She stepped closer again, but this time there was no demand in her posture. Day One, if you did choose me someday, would you mean it? Or would you simply be choosing safety for your crew? It was a fair question. Day One thought about it carefully. I don't know. I barely know you beyond what you've shown me, but... He paused. I do know that underneath all the princess warrior stuff there's someone interesting. Someone lonely who doesn't want to be. Maybe if we had time, real time, I could know more. Yura's patterns pulsed with color. Then time you shall have. After we survive my mother. Alarms suddenly blared through both ships. Yura touched her wrist device and listened to rapid Velthari speech. Her expression hardened. The Empress has arrived early. We must go. Now. As they hurried back through the Taesong's dream, Day One cast one last look at his sleeping crew. He had made a promise to Yura. Now he had to make sure they both survived long enough to keep it. The throne room of the Empress's flagship made Yura's ship look modest. The chamber stretched hundreds of feet in every direction. Pillars of crystalline material rose toward a ceiling so high it disappeared into shadow. Velthari warriors lined the walls, each one carrying weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. At the far end of the room sat the Empress, Sora. She was even taller than Yura, her armor more elaborate, her glowing patterns blazing with power. Her eyes fixed on Day One the moment he entered, and he felt like an insect under a microscope. Yura walked beside him. She had reverted to full royal bearing, her back straight and her face expressionless. But Day One noticed her patterns flickering rapidly. She was nervous. They stopped before the throne. Yura bowed deeply. Day One did the same, figuring it was safer to show respect. So this is the human, Empress Sora said. Her voice resonated through the entire chamber. This small creature has captured my daughter's attention. Mother, I present Captain Day One of Earth's exploration vessel, Taesong's Dream. A captain. The Empress leaned forward. Of what, that tiny broken ship we saw? Yes, Your Majesty, Day One said. His voice sounded small in the vast room, but he kept it steady. And tell me, Captain, why should the Velthari Empire care about humans? Your technology is primitive. Your military is non-existent. Your worlds are few. What can you possibly offer us? Day One had prepared for this. Perspective, Your Majesty. A different way of thinking about problems. Perspective. The Empress laughed. It was not a kind sound. We have conquered 47 star systems. We have perspective enough. With respect, Your Majesty, you have one perspective. The perspective of the strong. But there are other ways to be strong. Murmurs rippled through the assembled warriors. Several looked angry at his boldness. But the Empress raised a hand for silence. Interesting. Show me these other ways. Day One had brought a data pad from the Taesong's Dream. He held it up. May I display information? The Empress gestured. Technology in the room activated, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. Day One linked his pad to it. Humanity has faced extinction many times, he began. Images filled the display. Climate change that should have destroyed us. Diseases that killed millions. Wars that nearly erased our civilization. By your standards, we should have died out thousands of years ago. Then you are lucky, Kyle said from his position near the throne. Luck is not strength. No, it's adaptability. Day One changed the images. Every time we faced extinction, we changed. We learned. We evolved not just physically, but socially. We found new ways to survive. Any species can adapt, the Empress said. That is evolution. But can any species choose to adapt? Day One met her gaze. We don't just react to threats. We anticipate them. We imagine better futures and work toward them. That's human strength. Not power, but hope. Hope. The Empress said it like the word tasted bad. Hope is what the weak cling to when they have no strength. Then humanity is weak, Daewon admitted. We admit it freely. We're weaker than the Velthari, but we're still here, still reaching for the stars, still trying to explore and learn and grow. If hope is weakness, it's a weakness that's kept us alive for hundreds of thousands of years. The Empress stood. She was massive, nearly 8 feet tall, and her presence filled the room like gravity. Pretty words. But words are cheap. I will test you properly. If humans are truly worth my daughter's attention, you will prove it. How? Daewon asked. 3 tests. First, your ship's engineer will repair one of our damaged fighters using only primitive human tools. If she succeeds, you pass the first test. She's in cryosleep. Then wake her. The Empress smiled coldly. You have 1 hour. Daewon's mind raced. Waking someone from cryo took careful preparation. Rushing it could cause serious harm. But he had no choice. Second test, the Empress continued. Your navigator will plot a course through the burning nebula. It is filled with magnetic storms that destroy navigation systems. If he can guide a ship through it using only human methods, you pass. And the third test? Daewon asked, though he dreaded the answer. You will face Kale in single combat. Not to the death, but to submission. If you can last 10 minutes against our greatest warrior, you will prove human courage. 10 minutes against a warrior trained since birth to fight. A warrior twice his size with alien strength and reflexes. Daewon would be lucky to last 10 seconds. And if I fail these tests, he asked quietly, then I will destroy your ship and everyone in it. You will be returned to Earth as a warning, and my daughter will be forbidden from ever contacting your species again. Yura stepped forward. Mother, this is not fair. You test them against impossible standards. Fair? The Empress turned her blazing gaze on her daughter. You speak to me of fairness? You who have been distracted from your duties by this creature. You who have delayed returning home because you cannot stop thinking about him. Her voice rose. If you want to keep him, prove he is worthy. Prove humans are not the pathetic waste of my time they appear to be. Yura's patterns flickered with distress, but she bowed her head. Yes, Mother. The Empress sat back down. You have 1 hour to wake your crew and prepare. Fail, and face the consequences. Guards escorted Daewon back to the docking bay. Yura walked with him, silent and tense. I am sorry, she finally said. My mother is harsh. More than I expected. She's protecting you. I understand that. Daewon ran his hand through his hair. But these tests, Yura, they're designed for us to fail. I know, she grabbed his arm. But you cannot fail. If you do, I lose you. I lose all chance of understanding your species. And you lose your lives. No pressure then. They reached the Taesong's dream. Daewon immediately went to the cryo bay and began the wake-up procedures for Hana and Taehyun. The process took 30 minutes under the best circumstances. He had 60 total before the first test. Yura helped where she could, following his instructions precisely. Her presence was oddly comforting despite the situation. Why does your mother hate humans so much? Daewon asked as they worked. She does not hate you. She fears what you represent, which is? Change, the unknown. My mother has built her empire on strength and tradition, but you show her a different kind of strength, one she cannot measure or predict. It frightens her. The pods began warming. Hana and Taehyun would wake soon, confused and disoriented. Daewon, Yura said softly, if you survive these tests, I will keep my promise. I will give you freedom to choose, I know. But if you do not survive... She struggled with the words. I will remember you. I will make sure Earth knows what happened. And I will never forgive my mother for this. Hana's pod opened with a hiss of air. She sat up slowly, blinking in confusion. Captain? What? Where are we? Long story. Short version. We're on an alien ship and you need to fix one of their fighters in less than half an hour or they'll kill us all. Hana stared at him. Captain, that's not funny. I wish I was joking. Taehyun's pod opened next. He looked even more confused than Hana. Both crew members' eyes went wide when they saw Yura standing there. Okay, Hana said, snapping into engineer mode. Okay, show me this fighter. I'll need my tools. Taehyun looked at the maps they gave him. The burning nebula, right, of course. Why not? Daewon felt pride surge through him. No panic, no breakdown. Just 2 professionals ready to do impossible things because their captain asked them to. That's my crew, he said. Then to Yura, let's show your mother what humans can do. The tests were about to begin, and with them, the fate of humanity's first contact with alien life hung in the balance. Hana worked like a woman possessed. The Velthari fighter sprawled across the hangar bay, its systems damaged by what looked like weapons fire. She had a box of basic human tools and 30 minutes to repair technology. That was thousands of years ahead of Earth's Day One. Watched from the observation deck with Yura and a crowd of Velthari engineers. The engineers looked skeptical. Some openly laughed when Hana pulled out her simple wrench and screwdriver. She uses metal tools, one engineer said, like children, but Hana ignored them all. She studied the fighter carefully, running her hands over the hull, listening to sounds Day One couldn't hear. Then she started taking panels apart. What is she doing? Yura asked. The damage is in the power core. She's tracing the systems, Day One explained, understanding how everything connects. You can't fix one part without knowing how it affects the whole. Hana worked methodically. When she hit a problem, she didn't panic. She found another way. A stuck bolt? She heated it with a plasma torch improvised from 2 wires and a power cell. A broken connection? She bypassed it with material stripped from a non-critical system. 20 minutes passed. The Velthari engineers stopped laughing. 25 minutes. Hana was inside the fighter now, her voice echoing as she shouted instructions to herself. 28 minutes. She emerged, covered in grease and coolant, holding a damaged component. Got it, the power regulator was fried. I replaced it with a modified backup from the navigation system. It won't run at full capacity, but it'll fly. She pressed the ignition sequence. The fighter hummed to life. Systems activated across the board. Green lights appeared on every console. The Velthari engineers stood in stunned silence. Impossible, one muttered. She rebuilt the power flow in under 30 minutes. Hana wiped her hands on her uniform and grinned at Day One. Never doubt an Earth engineer, Captain. The Empress watched from her private viewing room. Her expression gave nothing away, but she nodded once. The first test is passed. Prepare the second. Taehyun's test was different. He sat in the pilot seat of a small scout ship, staring at a holographic map of the burning nebula. Magnetic storms swirled through the region in chaotic patterns. Navigation computers couldn't predict their movements. Most pilots avoided the nebula entirely. You must fly through the center and reach the beacon on the other side, Kale explained. You have one attempt. If you fail, your ship will be destroyed by the magnetic forces. Taehyun studied the map carefully. Then he did something that surprised everyone. He pulled out a piece of paper and a pencil. What is he doing? A Velthari officer asked. Old school navigation, Day One said with a smile. Before computers, human navigators used math and observation. Taehyun drew the nebula's rough shape. He marked the magnetic storm's positions. Then he started calculating vectors and angles by hand, muttering equations under his breath. This is primitive, Kale scoffed. This is how humans navigated Earth's oceans for thousands of years, Day One replied. Using stars and math and instinct, Taehyun finished his calculations. I'm ready, the scout ship launched. Every screen in the observation room showed its progress. Taehyun flew carefully, making constant small adjustments. When magnetic storms appeared, he didn't try to outrun them. He used their own forces to slingshot around them, saving fuel and time. Clever, Yura murmured. He uses their strength against them. That's what humans do, Daewon said. We don't have the power to overwhelm problems. So we redirect them, we adapt. Taehyun reached the beacon in half the expected time. He'd navigated the nebula perfectly, using nothing but paper calculations and pilot instinct. The Empress leaned back in her chair. 2 tests passed. Impressive. But the final test is the true measure. Captain Daewon must now face Kale. Daewon's stomach dropped. He'd been dreading this moment. The combat arena was enormous, circular, with high walls and a force field ceiling. Thousands of Velthari had gathered to watch. They wanted to see the human fail. Kale stood on one side of the arena, massive and imposing in combat armor. He carried no weapons, just his bare hands. Each hand was big enough to crush Daewon's skull. Daewon stood on the other side, feeling very small in his simple uniform. Yura had offered him armor, but it was made for Velthari bodies. It wouldn't fit. 10 minutes, the Empress's voice boomed across the arena. Survive 10 minutes and you pass the test. Begin, Kale charged immediately. His speed was terrifying for something so large. Daewon barely dodged the first strike. The warrior's fist hit the ground where Daewon had been standing, cracking the stone floor. Daewon rolled away and got to his feet. He couldn't fight Kale's strength against strength. He'd be killed in seconds. He had to think like a human. Be smarter. Be faster, Kale charged again. This time Daewon didn't dodge away. He dodged toward, sliding under Kale's legs and popping up behind him. It bought him 3 seconds before Kale spun around. The crowd roared. Some cheered for Kale. A few actually cheered for Daewon. Fight like a warrior, Kale bellowed. Not a coward. I fight like a human, Daewon gasped. For 9 minutes, Daewon ran and dodged and survived. He used every trick he knew. He was faster than Kale, but barely. His lungs burned. His muscles screamed. Blood ran from a cut above his eye where one strike had grazed him. But he stayed on his feet. With 30 seconds left, Kale changed tactics. Instead of charging, he feinted left, then struck right. Daewon fell for it. The massive fist caught him in the ribs and lifted him off his feet. He flew through the air and crashed into the arena wall. Everything went white with pain. He couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Distantly, he heard counting. 10 seconds left, 9, 8. Get up, he whispered to himself. Get up, you stupid human. Get up, 7 seconds. He pushed to his hands and knees, 6 seconds. He stood swaying, 5 seconds. Kale charged for the final blow, 4 seconds. Daewon couldn't dodge, too hurt. Too slow, 3 seconds. Then Yura was there. She appeared between Daewon and Kale, her hand raised. Stop, Kale halted, confused. The entire arena fell silent. Princess Yura, the Empress's voice was cold. What are you doing? Saving him. Yura's voice rang across the arena. I will not watch him die for your entertainment. You dare interfere with my test? Yes. Yura turned to face her mother. You want to see if humans are worthy? Look at him. He faced impossible odds and survived. He solved problems we couldn't solve. He showed courage even when every instinct told him to give up. That is human strength, and I will not let you destroy it. You choose him over your duty, over your empire. I choose what is right. Yura's patterns blazed with light. You taught me that strength is everything. But Daewon taught me that there are different kinds of strength, and love is the strongest of all. The word love echoed through the arena. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Love? The Empress stood. You love this alien? Yes, Yura said it clearly, loudly, without shame. I love him. And by our oldest laws, a declaration of love made before witnesses is sacred. You cannot deny it. The Empress's face went through several emotions. Anger, shock, then surprisingly something like respect. Before she could speak, new alarms blared. Every Velthari in the arena reached for weapons. Unknown ships approaching. A voice shouted. Human vessels. They're armed! Daewon's heart leaped. Earth had come. They'd found the distress beacon. On the screens he saw them. 50 human warships. Every combat vessel Earth could spare. They looked tiny compared to the Velthari fleet, but they came anyway. Because humans didn't abandon their own. Admiral Jiwoo's face appeared on the communication screens. She was older, gray-haired, but her eyes were fierce. This is Admiral Jiwoo of Earth Defense Fleet. You are holding our people. Return them immediately or face the consequences. The Empress laughed. Consequences? Your entire fleet is nothing compared to one of my battleships. Then you'll have to destroy us, Jiwoo said calmly. Because we're not leaving without our crew. Daewon felt pride surge through him. Humanity had come. Outgunned and outmatched, but they came. Mother, Yura said urgently, this is your choice. Start a war with a species that will never surrender, or make peace with potential allies. The Empress looked between the human fleet, her daughter, and Daewon bleeding on the arena floor. You force my hand, daughter, she said finally. Then to everyone's shock, she smiled. Very well. I accept your declaration. The human has proven himself, not through strength, but through the loyalty he inspires. She gestured to the human fleet. They came for him knowing they would die. That is strength I can respect. She touched a control. Admiral Jiwoo, I am Empress Sora of the Velthari Empire. I return your people to you unharmed, and I propose a meeting to discuss terms of alliance between our peoples. Jiwoo's expression shifted from warlike to cautious. Alliance? Yes. It seems we have much to learn from each other. Daewon tried to stand straight despite his broken ribs. Yura helped support him. Is it over? He asked quietly. No, Yura said. It's just beginning. Daewon stood in the observation deck of the new ship Unity, watching both Earth and Velthari vessels working side by side in the construction yard. The ship was massive, designed by both species working together. It combined human creativity with Velthari technology, creating something neither could have built alone. "You are thinking too much again," Yura said from behind him. Daewon smiled without turning around. He'd learned to sense when she was near, just remembering how this all started, how close we came to disaster. But we did not reach disaster. We reached understanding. Yura moved to stand beside him. She'd changed in the past months, still strong and royal, but softer somehow, more willing to listen before acting. Though I will admit my mother gave us quite the challenge. Your mother is terrifying. She likes you now. She says you have spirit. She broke 3 of my ribs testing my spirit. And you survived. That impressed her more than any speech could have. Yura's hand found his, her large fingers intertwined with his smaller ones. It had taken weeks to figure out how to hold hands comfortably given their size difference. Now it felt natural. The observation deck door opened. Hana and Taehyun entered, followed by several Velthari officers including Kale. The big warrior nodded respectfully to Daewon. They'd become unlikely friends after the arena incident. Kel had apologized for nearly killing him, and Daewon had forgiven him. It was a start. "Status report?" Daewon asked, slipping back into captain mode. "The Unity will be ready for launch in 2 weeks," Hana said. She worked with Velthari engineers now, and they'd stopped questioning her methods. Mostly. "We're installing the final power systems today. Navigation systems are integrated," Taehyun added. "Human and Velthari working in parallel. We'll have the best of both approaches." "And the crew?" Daewon asked. 30 humans, 30 Velthari," Kale said in his deep voice. His translator had improved significantly. "All volunteers, all trained together. They are ready." Admiral Jiwoo entered next, accompanied by Empress Sora. The 2 leaders had spent months negotiating the alliance treaty. It hadn't been easy. 2 completely different cultures trying to find common ground. But they'd done it. "Captain Daewon," Jiwoo said. "Princess Yura, are you both ready for your first mission?" "We are," Daewon confirmed. The Empress studied them both. "You understand the importance of this mission? You will be the face of our alliance. Everything you do will be watched by both our peoples." "We understand, Mother," Yura said. "Good." Sora's expression softened slightly. "I was wrong about humans. I judged you too quickly by standards that did not apply. You have shown me that strength comes in many forms. And we've learned that tradition and honor have their place too," Daewon said. "Both cultures have value. That's what this alliance is about." Jiwoo nodded approvingly. "The Unity will explore the sector beyond Velthari space. We've detected signals there. Possibly other civilizations. You'll make first contact if you find anything." "Humans and Velthari together," Yura said, showing the galaxy what cooperation looks like. After the meeting ended and everyone left, Daewon and Yura remained in the observation deck. They stood close together watching the stars. "Are you nervous?" Yura asked. "About commanding a joint crew on a mission into completely unknown space, while representing 2 species who barely understand each other?" Daewon smiled. "Terrified. Good, fear keeps you cautious." She paused. "But excitement keeps you moving forward. Are you excited too?" "Yes. This is what I always wanted. To explore, to discover new things. And now I get to do it with someone who..." He trailed off. "Who what?" "Someone who matters to me." Yura's patterns pulsed with soft colors. "You have learned to speak more directly. I am pleased. I had a good teacher, one who taught me that sometimes you have to be bold. And you taught me patience. A fair trade." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Yura said quietly, "Have I been patient enough?" Daewon remembered her asking that question months ago in the cryo bay, when she'd cornered him and demanded to know why he wouldn't accept her claim. So much had changed since then. "You've been perfect," he said. "Perfect? That is a very strong word for a human." "I mean it. You gave me freedom. You respected my choices. You learned about my culture even when it made no sense to you. And you declared your love in front of everyone, risking everything." He turned to face her. That took more courage than any battle. Yura's large hand cupped his face gently. "And do you love me?" It was a fair question. 6 months ago, Daewon couldn't have answered it honestly. She'd been his captor, his confusion, his impossible situation. But now, after working together and learning together and building something new together, the answer was clear. Yes, he said simply. I do, Yura smiled. Not her predatory smile from their first meeting. This smile was genuine, happy, almost shy. Good, because I would be very disappointed after all this patience to hear otherwise. She leaned down. He reached up. They'd practiced this too, finding the right angle despite their height difference. When they kissed, it felt like the most natural thing in the universe. Behind them, Earth and Velthari workers continued building the unity. Two species, once strangers, now allies. Building a future together. The observation deck door opened again. Hana stuck her head in. Captain, sorry to interrupt, but we need your approval on the final engine configuration. And Yura, your mother wants to speak with you about the departure ceremony. Duty calls, Daewon said. Always, Yura agreed. But neither moved immediately. One more thing, Daewon said. After this mission, if it's successful, I've been thinking about what comes next. Oh? Earth has started a program for long-term cultural exchange. They're looking for ambassadors to live on Velthari worlds for extended periods, to really understand each other's societies. And you are considering this? I'm considering asking if you'd want to be my co-ambassador. Officially. Yura's eyes widened. You wish to commit to this to us? Not just for a mission, but for years. Maybe longer than years, maybe? Daewon took a breath. Maybe for as long as you'll have me. In Velthari culture, such a declaration was essentially a marriage proposal. In human culture, it was the same. Daewon had learned enough about both to know exactly what he was saying. Yura stood very still. Her patterns blazed with brilliant colors. Then she laughed, a sound of pure joy. You humans and your patient courtship. 6 months and only now you make this declaration? I wanted to be sure. And are you sure? Completely. Then yes. She pulled him into a hug that lifted him off his feet. Yes, I accept. We will be ambassadors together, partners in all things. When she set him down, they were both grinning like fools. Come, Yura said. We have work to do. Ships to launch, worlds to discover. And first, we must tell my mother she is going to have a human in the family permanently. That should be entertaining. They walked out together, hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next. 2 weeks later, the Unity launched. Captain Daewon of Earth and Princess Yura of the Velthari Empire stood together on the bridge, their joint crew working efficiently around them. Human and alien, different but united. Course plotted for the unknown sector, Taehyun reported. All systems operating at peak efficiency, Hana added. Crew standing ready, Kale said. Daewon looked at Yura. She nodded. Take us out, Daewon ordered. Let's show the galaxy what humanity and the Velthari can do together. The Unity's engines ignited. The massive ship moved forward, carrying hope and cooperation into the unknown reaches of space. On Earth, people watched the launch and cheered. Humanity had reached for the stars and found not enemies but friends. They'd proven that even the smallest and weakest could stand beside the mighty as equals, not through violence or domination, but through courage, adaptability, and the simple, stubborn refusal to give up. On the Velthari homeworld, citizens watched too. Their empire had grown through conquest, but now they saw a new kind of growth, through understanding, through partnership, through love between two beings who should have been enemies but chose to be something better. The Unity jumped to faster than light speed, disappearing into the vast darkness of space. Ahead lay mysteries and dangers and wonders beyond imagination. But Daewon and Yura would face them together. Human and Velthari, captain and princess, partners in every way that mattered. In the captain's quarters that night, Yura found Daewon looking at photos from Earth on his datapad. His sister's wedding. His nephew taking his first steps. Moments he'd missed. Do you regret staying? She asked softly. No. He pulled her down to sit beside him. These are memories. But you're my future. I made my choice. And I made mine. She rested her head on his shoulder, an intimacy that had taken weeks to figure out given their size difference. I chose you the moment you refused to fear me. Everything since has only confirmed that choice. Even the part where I got you in trouble with your mother, especially that part. It showed me what really mattered. She took his hand. Thank you for teaching me patience and love. and that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is choose to be vulnerable. Thank you for teaching me to be bold, to take chances, to believe that impossible things can work if you're willing to try.